Good afternoon. I probably ought to say right from the very beginning that I'm actually quite a fan of the political declaration and the withdrawal agreement. I'm only joking. Because that's what it is. It's a joke. I do not know. I find it difficult to decide whether the Prime Minister is a fool, a misguided fool, or a pathological liar. Now, I can say that when politicians may not be able to, but it's very difficult to decide which direction she's going in with this political declaration withdrawal agreement. We've heard already the downsides, very, very, very serious downsides of the proposed agreement that is being put forward. But you know, she went to Grimsby. I don't know whether you're aware of the reports of that. She went to Grimsby to make a speech about this arrangement that she's putting forward. And I had to pinch myself, because when you read what she said, it's actually very compelling. On the face of it, she talked about us regaining our control of fisheries and farming, about regaining free movement of people, and about not contributing what she termed vast amounts of money to the European Union. It all seems very plausible. But of course, during the period in which we are trapped with no say within the European Union and no way out, the fisheries will effectively be lost to European fishing organisations. Free movement shows no sign of being implemented. In fact, the government seems to have withdrawn entirely from the control of migration in recent months. And as for money, she seems to neglect to mention that we're likely to have to pay continuously while remaining as a vassal state of the European Union, but we'll also, of course, pay at least £39 billion for the privilege of having no say in European affairs that are actually dictating our future. Doesn't seem to be a very good deal to me. I was in Grimsby, oddly enough, the week before the Prime Minister. I had no idea she was coming as well, but, you know, she's following in my footsteps. I was in Grimsby at the Hull and Humber Chamber of Commerce, who had actually kindly invited me to a dinner, the host of which was Lord Lamont. Probably not many of you, nor did I, know that Lord Lamont is a son of Grimsby. Most unusual lineage, I would say, but he's very enthusiastic about Grimsby Football Club, so he must know a thing or two. At that Chamber of Commerce dinner, there were business owners and managing directors of major companies in the region. Companies that organise shipping, that actually conduct shipping, that manufacture, that are property companies, that are companies that actually provide holiday facilities. Not a single one of them said anything other than, we want to leave on the 29th of March, and we don't mind if we leave without a deal. And the reason that they said that, they said on the night, was that actually they're well prepared to seize the opportunities that Brexit affords them. That they want to stop the continuing uncertainty, because it's the uncertainty that's damaging to business, and that they want to just get on and embrace the future. It was interesting that at least two of those business people said that they had voted to remain, but now, having experienced the reaction of the European Union and the way that they have humiliated our country, want to leave. They've also, of course, seen through Project Fear, because it has been proved to be wrong, and have decided that the opportunities that are available to them to seize are actually quite considerable. Now, I was quite heartened by that, but of course we never get the BBC turning up at the Grimsby branch of the Chamber of Commerce to interview business people who actually believe it's important to leave. And yet within our organisation, Leave Means Leave, we have hundreds of business people, mainly business owners and entrepreneurs, who are very keen on seizing the future and the opportunities. It's the corporates, the multinationals and the CEOs who are on a 3-year timescale for their bonuses who are particularly interested in maintaining the status quo. And we're here today to talk about the opportunities, not about how terrible Theresa May's deal is. But typically of those sorts of people, of course, is our Chancellor Philip Hammond. And the coterie around the Prime Minister have seen the whole of this affair as being merely a damage limitation exercise. And if you see the entire matter through the eyes of the establishment, who want no change, she's actually done a very good job for them. Because she's created the perfect deal to keep us as close to the European Union as possible and to make the likelihood of success of leaving as little as possible, so that we will probably want to return to the EU fold. And if we don't like that, then we can stay in. That's basically the choice that we're being given. The opportunities, which I'm sure will be set out by my colleagues on the table there, all of whom are far better qualified than I to go into the detail, so I won't do too much of that. I'll skim across the surface. The opportunities are legion. You know, the barrier to organising trade is a complete myth. I've been involved in international trade all of my career on and off. I've done business on every continent apart from Antarctica, and I have actually been involved in running through the Chambers of Commerce, who you may not know, issue all of the export certificates for everything that's exported outside the EU electronically. Amazing, that, isn't it? The thing of myth, electronic paperwork. Electronically, and it works perfectly well. The World Bank said in a report not too long ago that only 2% of goods worldwide, even between countries that have no trade arrangements whatsoever, are ever inspected at borders. Because they carry certificates that indicate the origin and the contents of the containers. And the certificates are issued under a convention, a Geneva Convention of 1926, which said that chambers of commerce worldwide were given the job of verifying goods to ease their trade across borders. It's been going on a very long time. What is astonishing about the withdrawal agreement is that it introduces into the process an archaic system, because there has been lifted from the Turkish arrangements a system that requires wet stamps on paper for goods moving across borders, rather than the system that already operates perfectly well globally via an electronic system of trade. So it sounds like I'm harping a little bit on the negatives, but I wanted to really lay out to you how bad the deal is that's being put forward and how easy simply leaving on world trade terms can be. I went to Geneva to see the WTO a few weeks ago, and the WTO said to me it was perfectly possible, even now, for the government and the EU to agree under Article 24 of the GATT, General Agreement of Trade and Tariffs, to simply maintain the current arrangements that we have together on both tariffs and quotas for the foreseeable future while we work out a trade deal, providing we are negotiating a trade deal. The issue is that neither the EU nor the UK government have asked for this, because neither of them want it. Alternatively, we could simply have a bare bones trade deal and move forward immediately on the 30th of March using that. But again, neither side want this to happen, because they're both determined to frustrate and reverse Brexit. If we we were to leave on WTO terms, we could set our own tariff schedules. And there have been hints that the government, the Chancellor, shock horror, would have to remove 90% of the tariffs, thus reducing our cost of living, introducing more money into the economy, boosting growth, and leading to a much better future. Isn't that terrible? We should all resist it. Of course, we might not want to remove all tariffs. I'll leave this to Patrick to talk about. Because, for example, if I were in the Chancellor's shoes, I'd probably keep the tariffs on automobiles in order to boost British manufacturing of automobiles. Because the relative cost of UK vehicles would be lower than imported vehicles. But I'd remove the tariffs on most other things, including the components for automobiles, thus boosting our efficiency even more. And why wouldn't you start to remove tariffs on things, for example, that we don't produce ourselves? Bananas, citrus fruit, for example. Why wouldn't you want to reduce the tariffs on things that we already import in massive quantities, like frozen cooked chicken meat, which goes into most ready meals in the UK? Why would you not want to do that? Why would you not want to reduce the cost of flat screen TVs, which we don't make? Trainers, children's clothes, all of which are imported now. Why would you not want to do that? Thus boosting our economy, giving people more spending power, and actually reducing the cost of living. I think Patrick will probably tell you by up to 4% of the economy. Of course, if you did it all at once, it would be such a massive boost to our economy, it would probably be destabilising. So you want to do it gradually in order to actually get the maximum benefit. And on trade, most of the trade issues are to do with non-tariff barriers, the real issues. So why wouldn't we want to have a situation where we can have mutual recognition? Do we really believe that we can't import Australian products because they're not as safe as the UK? Do we really believe that US products are not as safe? I mean, I don't know how many of you have been to the US on holiday, but you've not grown 2 heads or died in the process. The fact of the matter is that most of those products are of equal value and safety as the UK products, because they have very strict safety regulations. And I'll just really get controversial, have the temerity to very quickly dive into the chlorinated chicken argument. Do you know that you probably drank quite a bit of chlorine this morning in your tea? Because chlorinated water from the tap is there for a purpose, to make it safer. And all your washed salads, all your bagged salads are washed in chemicals that are either chlorine or an equivalent to remove Listeria and Campylobacter, to make it safe for you to eat them. So all this stuff is complete nonsense put up by Project Fear. We can take back control of fisheries and farming and actually provide a boost to some of the poorest communities in our nation. And we can spend the 39 billion wisely on boosting the UK economy, which will generate taxes, which will then lead to improved public services. We can improve infrastructure with that 39 billion. We can do something about boosting the economy. We could just give it to people. £600 each it is. £2,000 for an average family it would cost. You could just have it, spend it. I'm not advocating that necessarily, but it illustrates the scale of the issue. And the fact of the matter is, there's a recurring saving that we would have of nearly £11 billion a year of the net contribution, which could be used to cut business taxes. How many businesses would welcome a cut in business rates, or corporation tax, or in fact a cut in personal income tax, which would boost spending? There's a huge opportunity for us less than 20 days down the road, if we're just prepared to seize it and to ignore the vested interests of the establishment, who simply want to maintain the status quo because it suits them. The first article I ever wrote after I resigned from the British Chamber of Commerce, I wrote for the Evening Standard, funnily enough actually after a session I'd done with John Redwood here at Church House. And the thing was entitled, "Is This a Modern Peasants' Revolt?" And I ended by saying in the article, talking of Wat Tyler and the medieval peasantry vote, watch out, because the establishment are vicious in pursuit of their own vested interests. How right I was. Thank you.